Hey everyone, it's Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. Thanks for joining me today. It's your buddy, it's your pal. We're going to dive right in to look at TIE Interceptors. Sorry it's been so long since my last video. We're having restrictions lift here. We can start going back out. Work has just gotten super busy, but I'm here now. Let's dive right in. TIE Interceptors, one of my most favorite Imperial squadrons for the generics and just otherwise. So let's look at the TIE Interceptor stats here. So the TIE Interceptor here, as you can see, when we say generic, it means that you can bring as many TIE Interceptor squadrons as you have squadron point value that you can have, which in a standard 400-point game, you can bring 134 points of squadrons. The TIE Interceptor, you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see its symbol. Opposite of that, you'll see its point cost. It's 11 points. Going back up to the middle of the box there, you'll see there's 4 boxes going from left to right. There's a yellow box there, which signifies how far it can move. It can move up to distance 5 or within distance 5. So very, very fast. It only has 3 hull, though, so pretty weak hull value, but the squadron makes up for it in other ways. It has an anti-squadron armament of 4 blue die, and it has an anti-ship armament of 1 blue die. So TIE Interceptor is really great at doing intercepting. They go in, they fly, they blast with the 4 blue die. Very powerful, but when it comes to attacking ships, you only have a 50-50 chance of potentially dealing 1 damage, which is why you'll often see them paired with Salone. Helps out with their ability against ships a bit. Their keywords is they have counter 2 and they have swarm, so very comparable to their equivalent, which is the Rebel A-Wing. So TIE Interceptors here, how do these keywords work? So if this A-Wing flew up and shot my TIE Interceptor, the A-Wing throws 3 blue die. He says, aha, I dealt 1 damage to you. And the TIE Interceptor says, oh no, I've been hit. Well, now I get to counter with 2 blue die. Now, what says counter, the number next there signifies how many die you use when you counter. Specifically, you only use blue die when you counter, unless you have other abilities that can change or do something. But typically, you counter with blue dice. And even if this squadron had been destroyed by the A-Wing, you still are able to attack that squadron back with counter. So we roll a 2 die back, and hey, I did 1 damage back to the A-Wing. So you hit me 1, I hit you for 1. I would say the TIE Interceptor wins out in that exchange. Now they also have Swarm, and as I've talked about with other squadrons of Swarm, if that A-Wing is also engaged with one of your squadrons, you can re-roll 1 die. So you can be like, you know what? I'm actually going to re-roll that die, and instead of have only dealing 1 damage, I dealt 2 damage. So I actually won in that exchange. You did 1 damage to me, I did 2 damage back to you. Technically, the TIE Interceptor is the winner. So that is how counter and swarm work. Now again, for swarm, and for any attack, if the attack is obstructed or otherwise the squadrons are obstructed, again, in this situation, the A-Wing would have only attacked with 2 blue die. When you counter, you're only countering with 1 blue die. And again, because line of sight is when drawn, even though these squadrons are at distance 1 of each other, they are obstructed by the obstacle. So in which case, swarm does not work. All right. So that is TIE Interceptors, nothing else crazy going on there. I'm going to come back to something interesting, or not interesting, but something I really like using with them. But TIE Interceptors, they're great. I just think they're a fantastic, cheap squadron. I typically try to prefer bringing them over TIE Fighters just because there's just way more value, in my personal opinion. Let's talk about Sabre Squadron. So Sabre, you see there's a little bullet point in front of its name, signifies it is unique. You only ever have 1 Sabre Squadron. It is only 12 points, and man, it may have all the same stats, but Sabre Squadron is fantastic. If I can only ever bring 1 Interceptor, I would almost always take Sabre. Why? Because it gets the keyword snipe, and it gets snipe 4, so it gets to attack with 4 blue die at distance 2. How does that work? So Sabre, let's say Sabre's like way over here. He's like, you know what? I'm speed 5. Zoom. I'm just going to fly up over here. And hey, look, there's an A-Wing. Even though I'm not at distance 1, I technically can't attack normally past distance 1. But my keyword is snipe. And I am allowed to attack at distance 2 with 4 blue die. So I'm going to shoot that A-wing with 4 blue die. And you know what? Sabre doing what Sabre typically does, and that's a big old whiff. He doesn't he doesn't deal any damage at all. Sabre's super sad. The A-wing does a barrel roll, you know. But if you did have another one of your squadrons at distance 1 of that A-wing, he still has the swarm ability. You could re-roll one of those die, still miss. Sabre, you know, for being an ace squadron, you're not doing the Empire very proud right now. You're doing the standard, you know, Star Wars Rebels of not hitting your target. So, but Sabre, you know, despite the vassal die here not being very favorable, Sabre is an extremely powerful squadron. He may not have that counter anymore, but makes up for it with that snipe and that ability to just punch targets at range. Why is this important? Well, a lot of Rebel squadrons typically like to bring, you know, Jan Ors, for example, which usually is being protected by like X-Wings that are like, hey, if you want to get the Jan, you got to go through us. And it just makes it really hard because Jan is able to use their defense tokens to help beef up their defenses, and it's just hard to get around that. Well, Sabre says, I don't care about that because these X-Wings, even though they have escort, which is if you are engaged with escort, you can only shoot escort squadrons. You cannot shoot non-escort squadrons. We're not at distance 1, which means we're not engaged. So Snipe is able to shoot past escort and snipe and shoot at Jan Ors. In this situation, hey man, I just did 3 damage even though she braces. Jan is now down to 2 health. Follow that up with like a Jendon double tap, and I've had my Sabre Squadron in most situations between Sabre and Jendon, backed by like flight controllers. I can snipe out their Jan Ors, and then I don't have to worry about Jan Ors anymore, which causes a lot of Rebel players, you know, to have to keep Jan Ors further back, you know, to keep her out of danger, which also means that you can pick off potentially other targets or squadrons. It just makes the Rebel player have to play more defensively so he doesn't lose such a valuable squadron. But if, for example, an X-Wing was at distance 1, you know, and you are engaged, you would not be able to snipe Jan Ors anymore. Because you are now engaged at distance 1 of escort. You have to shoot an escort. Now, you don't have to shoot the escort you're engaged with. Okay, you can still shoot another escort if you want. Like, for example, if this X-Wing here was like a YT-1400 that has escort and counter, well, obviously you don't want to take any damage back, so you'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to attack that escort. I'm going to snipe this other escort that I'm at distance 2 at. Totally okay. Absolutely can do that. You don't have to shoot the escort that's in your face unless that is the only escort and everything else is non-escort. All right? Okay. I don't think I'm missing anything else here other than to say that Sabre Squadron, you know, typically if you got it backed up with flight controllers and Hell Runner, it can shoot 6 blue die on a snipe attack, and it's just really, really strong. Just really, really strong. Nothing else crazy going on there. All right, let's talk about Siena. So Siena Ree, again, unique, has all the same stats, nothing different here. 17 points, has a brace and has a scatter, has counter 2, has swarm. The card effect of Siena, what you're paying for, is while you are defending, the attack is treated as obstructed. So what does this mean? So typically, if you want to protect your squadrons from like being flaked to death, you are typically trying to hide them in like debris fields and other obstacles to try to reduce, you know, them getting punched back. Siena doesn't care. It says, throw me in, coach. I'm ready. Let me engage all these guys. So typically now when this A-Wing is attacking, instead of throwing the 3 blue die, it can only throw 2 blue die, which Siena says, you know what? I can scatter that. Now I'm going to counter with 2 blue die. And look, you did no damage to me. Sure, I spent my scatter defense token, but now I just dealt 2 damage back to you. And now if the Rebel player wants to capitalize or get any value out of that A-Wing's attack, he has to throw more squadrons at Siena, which is what you kind of want. You want Siena to tie the squadrons down and focus fire on her. Leaves your other squadrons alone to do other things. That's her job. Now, what's great, again, about Siena, again, being obstructed, is this also works on, like, counterattack. So if Siena shoots that A-Wing, the A-Wing can only counter with one blue die. So just really good against ships that only have one anti-squadron flak dice. So like the CR-90, for example, has a blue die that it can shoot with anti-flak. It can't shoot Siena because it only has the one die. It's obstructed. That gets removed before you can even gather your attack pool. So the only ships that even have the ability to shoot Siena are those that come with two anti-squadron dice. They take one out, and then they can roll one, and then you can use other effects or abilities. But even then, Siena typically is not too concerned about one die. Now, there is one ship in the game that can shoot Siena regardless, and that's Jaina's Light. Jaina's Light, your attacks cannot be obstructed. So Jaina's Light on a CR-90 would be able to flak Siena. It's the only ship in the game that can do that. Now, if a capital ship does have a card such as Disengaged Fire Control, which is when declaring the target an attack, you cannot choose a target against whom the attack would be obstructed. So even if there was a ship with two anti-squadron die, if it had this face-up damage card on it, it wouldn't be able to even target Siena to attack at all, period. So that's just something I want to make sure I was pointing out. So Siena, really good at getting in the middle of the squad ball, tying squadrons up, and just being a nuisance. Let's talk about Soontir Fel. So Soontir, again, generic, unique. You can only have one of them in your fleet. He's 18 points. Again, brace, scatter. The rest of his boxes are all the same as the rest of the TIE Interceptors. Again, has counter 2, has swarm. His card ability is, after a squadron you are engaged with performs a non-counter attack, it suffers one damage if it did not attack you. So in this example, we're going to say Soontir Fel was here already. Siena flies up, shoots this A-Wing. The A-Wing is able to counter, and it doesn't suffer any ill effects, because, again, it specifies it's only any non-counter attack. But now let's say Siena's done her thing. Now this A-Wing says, you know what, I'm going to shoot you, Siena. I don't like you. And if it shoots Siena, he is automatically going to take 1 damage from doing so, because he is engaged with Soontir Fel there. So, that's not an exchange you want to make, just get an auto plinked back for 1 damage. So that what it means is you want to shoot Soontir Fel. Soontir Fel is essentially a soft escort. If you don't shoot Soontir, he's going to smack you back for 1 damage every single time. That's a non-counter. And even when you do shoot Soontir Fel, well, he's got counter 2, so you're typically still taking damage. So he's great if you're trying to protect other squadrons like Howl Runner or Mauler Mythal. Maybe you're not wanting to bring escort squadrons for that role. You want to bring Soontir because, again, he's a scatter ace. So he's great for that kind of a role of, yeah, you may still be able to get to shoot my other stuff, but I'm punch you in the face while you're doing it if you're not shooting at me. Or what some people have done is bring Soontir, surround him with escort, and then you have to shoot escort, but then Soontir is still punching you in the face for shooting escort. So that's just kind of interesting play and dynamics there that you can do with all those squadrons. I don't think I'm missing anything. Everything fits on one page here. So yeah, we went over Interceptor, Sabre, we covered Soontir, we covered Siena. Nothing crazy or anything otherwise going on there. Perfect. Let's talk about, I want to go back to the point I was trying to make before about Interceptors and how extremely well they pair with reserve hangar decks. So reserve hangar decks, in a nutshell, there are 3 points that go in the offensive retrofit slot. If a non-unique squadron with swarm is destroyed at distance 1 to 5 of the ship equipped with this card, you can bring that squadron back with 2 health. So in this example here, let's say we've got a card equipped to this Gazanti, and this TIE Interceptor is sitting here, and he's engaged by this A-Wing, and this A-Wing, let's say he shoots that TIE Interceptor, and he rolls 3 hits, he one-shots the TIE Interceptor, but the Interceptor gets to shoot back, he deals damage to the A-Wing. Okay, even though his points drop to 0, you discard reserve hangar deck, it's a one-time use only, But then you can bring that squadron back at 2 health, at distance 1 of the ship. And yeah, he's activated, so you try to want to typically throw them in, activate them, blast away, have them get destroyed, and then it doesn't matter, you bring them back, and then you just fling them next round. And it's such a powerful card because interceptors already punch so hard anti-squadron wise, and they have counter. And then you don't care if he gets killed because then you can bring him back, and you do it all over again. So a lot of value you can get out of a TIE Interceptor from a 3-point card. I'm not going to go super deep into different things, but just essentially reserve hangar decks, really good paired of TIE Interceptors, really increases their value. You don't care if they get killed, you bring them back. Yeah, just great. So that is the TIE Interceptor. Of course, if you feel like I missed anything or got something wrong, please be sure to point it out. Let me know. You guys are all fantastic. Hope you all staying safe, staying healthy, and I'll catch you next time.